Hello, English 1301 students. This is your instructor, Mrs. Moore. I am creating this video just to walk you through your first week's notes. I'll be posting notes to supplement your chapter reading every week, along with this video with me just explaining any of the most important parts of the reading, anything that you might need to know for upcoming essays, and basically just walking you through the text and highlighting some of the important features. To start off with today, I just wanted to put this quote up at the top of the notes page that says, "Nobody is capable of free speech unless he or she knows how to use language, and such knowledge is not a gift. It has to be learned and worked at." I think this is an important quote as you start an English composition class, just to know that writing does not come easy to anyone, no matter what you think, no matter if you've always heard, oh, well, they were just born with good writing. It is really not true. You have to work at writing. It's a skill just like you would work on your basketball skills or your piano skills. Writing is a skill, and that is what we're going to try and practice throughout this class. And my job, of course, is to help you become the best writer that you can be. And so I'm hoping that through your reading, through your mind tap exercises, and through your essays this semester, your writing will improve. You'll become more confident in your writing and hopefully become the best writer you can be as you leave this class. So that's just a little bit about this class, a little bit about my goal as your instructor, but also just a fact that I think some students come into the class with this myth that if you aren't a good writer, you're never going to be a good writer. A lot of my students will tell me that, well, I'm just not a good writer. But I don't believe that. I believe that if you work hard at it and you learn the skills, you can become a very good writer. So just to start off the class, I wanted you to look at that quote and think about it for a little bit. As you'll see, and this is how it will be all semester, I've kind of outlined what I would talk about in a regular class, and also I've outlined just the chapter reading on these notes. So feel free to print them out and kind of jot down your own notes as we go through the video. Feel free to ask me questions about them if I don't explain something in the video. But really this is just to help you kind of see the outline of the text and to allow me to highlight some of the things that I think are most important. Obviously, I want you to read the entire chapter, and you will need to read the entire chapter in order to do your Mind Tap assignments. Hopefully by now you've read about Mind Tap, you've maybe even explored that a little bit as you've worked through your first week's folder. If you're having any trouble accessing Mind Tap, please let me know. But just a little bit about those exercises here. I just jotted down some of the notes about why I'm using this resource. It's a really helpful resource. I hope you will use it for all that it's worth. But please just look through this list. Note that you'll be doing grammar exercises on MindTap, so don't forget to do those. Each of the links will be in your week folders from week to week, but everything you do in MindTap counts for a grade, for a homework grade in this class. So you'll want to be sure to keep up with those assignments. Again, if you have any questions, I'm hoping that most of the resources I've given you in your weekly folder this week will help you understand MindTap better. And just let me know if you have any questions about the assignments. Do note that every assignment is not going to appear until the week that it's due. So right now you're only going to be able to see week 1, which isn't a lot. So just know nothing's wrong with your site. those assignments will pop up as they become available each week. So that was just a little bit about MindTap, and there's a lot out there, so please feel free to explore it, ask questions, look at the resources to help you navigate that. Now to the chapter notes. Like I said, I've actually just outlined the chapter basically. I wanted to be sure you read these learning objectives so you know what you're supposed to be getting out of the chapter. You're supposed to really be focusing on active reading and active thinking and active writing. And so, real quick before I talk a little bit about reading and writing, I did want to mention that on your MindTap exercise, there's a Sherman Alexie video. Sherman Alexie is a Native American writer, and there's this little video about him. I found the critical reading or the critical thinking questions to be a little bit confusing on that video, but basically I just wanted to tell you that respond to those questions by thinking about how is Alexie thinking about his culture differently than people have maybe thought about his culture in the past? What is he doing? How is he using the things we're learning in this chapter? How is he evaluating his audience? How is he looking at the context of his work? How is he, as a writer, biased to his writing or his topics? So that's just a little bit about that video. I just wanted to warn you that I do know those questions are a little vague. So just think about, what is Alexie doing differently? How is he thinking? What's his thinking process? We're just trying to dig into how do writers come up with ideas to write and what makes a writer successful in their writing. And that goes back to critical thinking. And that's what I have next on this note sheet. As you see, I put reading, writing, and thinking. This is just my little way of thinking about this class in this triangle. I think about this class as trying to build your skills in all three of these areas: reading, writing, and thinking. They're basically connected, and you cannot have one without the other. To think critically, you must be reading and writing. To write critically, you must be reading and thinking, obviously. So I just like that picture. I think it basically sums up what this class's purpose is. This class is getting you ready for college. And not just college writing, although that's what I'm going to be grading and that's what we're going to be focused on, but it's also getting you ready for the reading load in college. It's getting you ready to think at a deeper level than perhaps you've thought before, and all that comes with this magical combination of reading, writing, and thinking. So I hope that this first chapter is really going to teach you the skills to read critically in order that we might write critically once we've read and analyzed some of the texts. So the first of the chapter briefly talks about reading actively, and it gives you some great tips on reading actively. 3 of those tips that I really wanted you to be sure that you do every time you read for this class is to think about the rhetorical situation of the essays, preview the essays, then read them, then review them. This is a great practice for any class. I hope you'll use this in all of your college classes. You always want to think about the work before you read it, kind of look at what it's about, look at any headings, then you want to read it carefully, and then you want to think about it. It rarely does us any good if we read a whole page and then go do something else. If we don't sit there and reflect and think about our reading, we're not going to get a lot out of it. So in this text, we're going to be doing a lot of reading for better writing exercises. Those are going to be just that. They're going to make you sit and think about what an essay is about And most of the time it's going to ask you to tell me the thesis of the essay. You want to know what the main purpose and argument of that essay is. Trace that I have out here is just one way that I like to think about the rhetorical situation. Trace stands for text, reader, author, context, and exigence. These are just 5 things that you could quickly think about as you read an article in our book, as you read your literature review for your history class, whatever it may be. Think about the text, think about what type of writing it is. Think about the reader, so think about yourself. What are your biases towards the subject? Think about the author. Who is the author? Where do they come from? What is their credibility in the subject matter? What is their bias? Think about the context. Think about where this writing took place, what period of time it took place in, what was the social situation, the political situation. And finally, exigence just means to think about the reason for writing. Did the author have a specific moment in time? For example, a lot of authors were inspired to write something after 9/11. So that was a big exigence. That was something that made people write. It made people want their voices to be heard. Okay, so quickly going through the rest of this, chapter 1 outlines these great methods for reading actively in order to think critically. So please read over all of those suggestions and use them all as you go through this class. One thing I wanted to point out is evaluating the text is something that we don't do a lot in a high school level, but that we really want to focus on in college. You are developing your own thoughts and you want to be able to tell me what you think. You have an opinion and I want you to use that opinion and base your evaluation on credibility, reasoning, support, and whether or not the text is challenging. So we have a lot of ways to respond to the text that I want you to be sure and know how to do. I want you to be sure to know how to summarize a text. You'll probably be kind of working on that in your MindTap exercises. Viewing images critically, I'm not going to talk about this, but it's a great way to think critically, and your MindTap exercises are going to have you practice this. One thing that I like to think about with images is, what is the purpose of the image? Is it to sell you something? We get bombarded with a lot of consumer products, and so think about that as you're interpreting images. So as we interpret images, readings, whatever we're encountering, one way to really think deeply about these is going to be to write about them. That is why we make you write, because it develops you as a thinker as well. And so the end of the chapter really goes into some great habits to train your brain to be curious, to be creative, to be open to new ideas, to value others' points of view. All of these things are great advice for this class as we begin writing and thinking critically. In your own writing, I hope that you will do all of these things and that you will begin to think about modes, analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating, applying things that you read or you see. And so we'll learn how to do that within this class, which I'm really excited about. Please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, you'll be hearing from me next week as we start the writing process.